it's Josh with the Financial Advisor Car Guy. This week I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what it looks like to walk away from a deal. You know, a lot of the time when we go and look at cars, we get really excited and we've got to have it, we've got to drive it home, it's got to be that new piece of eye candy in the driveway or in the garage. But not always is every car an ideal fit for you and your lifestyle. So I want to share a little bit about an experience my wife and I just had. So a few days ago we went and test drove this car, and it was going to be a potential daily driver for either my wife or myself. It would keep the miles off my truck. It would also get a lot better gas mileage than my wife's car. So either way, whichever one of us was driving it that day, we'd be saving some gas money. The other side of that is it was not a perfect car. I knew that going in and was kind of looking to tinker with it, kind of fine tune some things and then potentially flip it for more money, or keep it and drive it for a few years and give it to my daughter when she turns 16. So with all that said, let me set the stage. So this is a car that I found on Craigslist. It was about $2,500 below Blue Book. So right there, I'm thinking, great, instant equity. It was an inexpensive enough car, but the guy was still willing to take the best offer. So sight unseen, I kind of threw a couple numbers his direction, trying to work a deal. And we somewhat come close on a price, again, before I even saw the car. So I share this all with my wife, and she's fine with it. We hop in her car and we drive down there, and we get there to find the car. The guy had all the doors open, the hood open, the fuse box panel torn apart. He's in the middle of trying to fix something. And he nonchalantly just basically says, oh yeah, no, I was trying to button up a few things and clean some things up and whatever, and anyway, it's fine. So he kind of throws it all back together and shuts all the doors and gets everything going. And I should tell you, it's an electric car, 100% electric, not a hybrid. It is a plug-in electric car. So with that said, I've never owned an electric car. So I was really excited to not only test drive one, but to also potentially have one as a daily driver and kind of do some reviews and do some tests and do things on this car that, you know, my regular combustion engine vehicles, we all know about. But the electric side of things, I was so excited for that. And so he's got it on the charger, and he, like I said, all the doors and windows and everything are open and down, and he's working on different things. And so we show up, and he kind of never really apologizes for being in the middle of working on this thing in front of us, but just kind of says it is what it is. Here's the key, go drive it. So we noticed that it wasn't represented very well. The pictures he used must have been a couple years old. And, you know, the car was priced about $2,500 lower than Blue Book value. So I knew it wasn't going to be a perfect car, but that said, we looked through the interior and it was pretty gross. The back seats were stained, the where your butt would sit, and on the back, it was just stained everywhere. It needed a really deep cleaning. The carpet looked stained. The front seats had seat covers on them that weren't in great condition. I can only imagine what the seats looked like underneath that. But nonetheless, we take it for a test drive. So again, being an electric car, there's no exhaust note, there's no noise, there's no sound, it's just dead silent. There's a little green light on the dash that tells you that you're on. Otherwise, you might not even know. So the guy shows me, a few things and basically says, okay, go ahead and go, and take it for a drive, let me know what you think. So I back out of his driveway and accelerate off. Now, again, totally silent. It was the weirdest feeling, totally silent. All you hear are the tires turning on the asphalt. So it's a weird experience for the first time. Well, I'm driving down the road and I see the e-brake light is on. So I stop, I engage the e-brake, a second e-brake light comes on. I release the e-brake, that light goes away, but the emergency brake light, the error light, stays illuminated on the dash. So that right there was kind of freaking my wife out. She's like, I don't think we should drive this guy's car with the warning light on. So I'm sitting there trying to mess around with it. I'm going through the settings on the dash because it's all digital. Everything is really easy to read through and click through. And, it's just like an iPad or a computer screen in front of you. So I'm kind of navigating through the menus trying to figure out how to fix or at least diagnose, what the warning even is. Never figured it out. Well, just like a Tesla, for example, this particular car, and I'm not going to tell you what it is just yet, but this particular car has, your center nav and all that stuff in the display. Well, it was not working. The screen was completely black. None of the buttons or anything were illuminated. I pressed and held the power button, nothing. I pressed and held, several different buttons all at the same time, kind of like your iPhone, you can kind of press and hold to reset. Trying to do that with this screen, never got the screen working. So there's another red flag, right? My wife's like, well, great, there's gotta be some sort of electrical issue here. So long story short, I drive down the hill, turn around, literally drive right back up. I drove less than 1 mile in this car and I pull up and the gal's girlfriend or fiance comes out and she's pregnant, probably ready to have a baby any minute, but she comes out and it was actually her car. He was selling it for her because they did buy a Tesla. She wanted something a little bigger with a longer range, something a little bit more comfortable, a little more high end. And so he bought her this Tesla, or she bought herself a Tesla. And so, she must have seen us pull back up and he had gone inside. So out she came and, she's asking us if we have any questions about the car. And, come to find out, they'd only owned that car about 2 years and it has sat for the last 6 or 7 months. So they did drive it for a year to a year and a half before replacing it with a Tesla. And then the car is just sat. Well, it was filthy on the inside. It wasn't very clean on the outside. We asked about that brake light. Both she and the guy said, yeah, we've never seen that before. We don't know why that light's on. And then the dash thing, she had said, well, shoot, that's never happened before. I'm not sure exactly what that means. He told me that that had happened once before and it was a simple fuse. So there were some inconsistencies. They're both trying to sell me this car, but just the whole thing, the whole way about this thing, we were getting kind of weird vibes. So now I'll tell you what the car was. So it was a 2011 Ford Focus electric. So it's a pure electric car, plug-in power. It's got a short range of 60 to 80 miles. It gets the equivalent of like 102 or 104 miles per gallon. Very economical, not an uncomfortable car, but just small. I'm pretty tall, I'm 6'2.5". And, I've got my wife and 2 kids, and the 4 of us would have been a little cramped in that car, but at the same time, he was only asking $5,500 for the car. Now, that said, there's only a few thousand of these cars out there. Ford did not make very many. I think the year that they produced the most was 2017, and they produced something like 1,700 cars. They only ran that car from 11 to 18. Now in 2011, they only made 8. So production was very, very, very limited. So there's not a lot of these out there. Might be one of only 1 or 2 in my region in Central Oregon. And so, I thought it would be kind of a cool little car, very unique. You don't see them on the road, just something neat to have. Again, I've never owned an electric car, so this I thought would be my opportunity to get into one and really test it for what it's good for, see what I love, what I don't like. Again, it was priced aggressively enough that I could have bought it and then driven it for 10 or 15 or 20,000 miles and likely sold it for what I paid for it. So I was thinking along those lines. Or other case scenario being, I drive it for a couple, 2-3 years, and then my daughter, who's almost 13, when she turns 16, it'd be a great learner's car, right? It's a $5,000 Ford Focus that she doesn't have to put gas in, right? She just gets in and goes. I know she can't drive further than 60 miles away, all those things, whatever, right? So to me, it was really, really a great extra car. So I don't know exactly where his story differed from her story, but long story short, we walked away from the car because there were so many weird vibes. I told my wife as we were driving away, shoot, if he'd knock off another $1,000 or $1,500 or $2,000, I'd have driven home with it right now, right? I don't care if the brake light's on. I don't care if the nav doesn't work. Those are all things I can iron out. Maybe it needs new brake sensors or pads, or maybe it just needs a fuse, whatever it is. Those things can get fixed. But the whole package, right? Again, the car was not cleaned on the outside. It wasn't cleaned on the inside. These things weren't working. It hadn't been charged in a long time. We don't know the true battery life, power, consumption, or what a full charge is going to take us. All of those things. There were so many variables and so many questions that we felt best walking away. So that's what I wanted to talk about today, is what are some of the things that you look for when you buy a car, and have you ever walked away? I can't say too often I do walk away. I think that for me, I do as much homework and as much negotiation and as much, diving into that particular car, whether it's the make and model or whether it's a specific year or a specific trim, whatever it is. I learn as much as I can about what I'm looking at before I physically go and look at it, that I know I'm not wasting my own time or the seller's. I think that's very, very important, because I've been on both ends. I've been on the selling end where people just kick my tires all day long, never really wanting to buy, or wanting to buy but never really knowing what they're getting into. But on the other hand, as a buyer, I want to know exactly what the heck I'm buying, and I need to know that I'm getting a good deal, know that there's potential, or it solves a need or a problem, or whatever the case is. So this car, again, was not the end-all be-all. It was just a very simple car solving a very simple problem. But if I could get it for a good enough price, I could make money, or at least break even, or give it to my daughter for her to drive long term. And then who knows? Now again, the car was only $5,500 was his asking price. He had an or best offer on there. We negotiated it down a little bit. It still was too much for what it was in the condition after we saw it. But all things being what they are, the car blue booked for about $8,000, and it only had 60,000 miles. So it wasn't driven a whole heck of a lot for an 11 or 10 plus year old car. So had he knocked the price down a little bit more and been a little harder negotiator, maybe I'd have driven it home, because those are things that can be fixed, things that I feel confident in doing, and it still could make a really good car for somebody, but it would need a hugely professional detail. That's step one, right? Inside, outside, everything needs to be detailed, maybe some paint correction. And then, start diagnosing the electronics, right? What's going on in the dash? Why aren't the lights illuminating? Why isn't the nav screen coming up? All those things raised some eyebrows. And then lastly, that brake issue. It didn't seem to have any resistance when I was driving down the road. So I don't think the brakes were engaged. I don't think anything there. I think it was probably a wear sensor, or the pad, the pads were low. There aren't too many wearables on an electric car. So it's not like there's a check engine light. Right? I mean, it's just a different animal. And part of me still does kind of have that desire to go out and find an inexpensive electric car just so that I can drive one and experience one and see what it's like to live with a car that I have to charge every night. But at the same time, I don't think that I'm ready to turn in the gas pump type of vehicle, right? I don't hate going to the gas station. It's not where I want to spend my time, but knowing that that's fueling a vehicle that I do enjoy to drive. I do like taking my gas-powered vehicles out on the highway and just letting them rip, or, working on an engine. There's a lot to be said for that. It's so therapeutic in a lot of ways. And in an electric car, there's just not that same feel. I can't pop the hood. All I see is a battery and some wires that go to computer chips and other things, right? There's no engine, there's no carburetor, there's no anything. So you kind of get something different, but you're losing something. And so I'm still somewhat on the fence when it comes to electric cars. I believe that they are something that's going to be here to stay. But at the same time, I don't know that cars, are really ever going to evolve full circle so that, combustion engines are gone. I mean, they're going to have to pry my 68 Mustang out of my dead body hands. That car's never going away. I'm going to have to find a way to continue to put gas in it so I can drive it down the road. I'm never going to convert it to electric. If that becomes a thing, right? It already is, but if it ever becomes mandated or anything like that, I will just let it sit here and rot away, because it's not going to ever go under the knife as far as an engine conversion to electric. So, I think there's a time and a place. And again, I would love to have an electric car just to dabble. So, that's something I'm looking for. But at the same time, again, you've got to understand that you might have to walk away from a deal here and there. Whether this car was an electric car or gas-powered car, diesel car, I don't care, pedal car. If it needs too much work and it isn't represented well, walk away. There's no guilt there. Don't feel bad about that. You know, one thing that was confusing to me is that the sale pictures, right, in his Craigslist ad, those pictures were obviously out of date. Those may have been the pictures from the time he bought the car 2 years ago, or she bought the car 2 years ago. You know, the window tint looked pristine, it looked freshly washed and waxed, the wheels were polished, the interior looked amazing. None of those things were the case once I got there and saw the car in person. So, you know, neglect definitely played a part. And nothing against the guy. I'm sure, you know, it's fine. He probably doesn't have the same passion for cars I do, or you might. But that's not any excuse. I mean, if you're going to try to sell a car, don't represent it one way and show it another. He knew I was coming, right? The car had been on Craigslist for almost an entire month. I had to have been the first person to go and see it, right? Because otherwise it would have already been cleaned. He may have already figured out the fuse problem. He may have already seen the brake light. My guess is that car sat there up until I said, hey buddy, I'm leaving. I will see you in 30 minutes. And then he decided to fix it. So long story short, we walked away. We're not sad about it. We don't regret it. If he contacts me and texts me and say, hey, I'm going to knock off $1,000 or $1,500, shoot, I might reconsider. I might go buy that car, and you might see it in a future episode. But at this point, as we stand today, no, I didn't buy the car. I don't think I'm going to be buying the car. And I think just walking away is one of the most important things you can make sure you do if the car isn't represented the same way in person as it was online in that for sale ad. Don't let someone take advantage of you. Don't let them do a bait and switch. Just make sure you know what you're getting. You do your homework, research, and just make sure that what your expectations are what you actually buy. Do not have buyer's remorse. You know, don't allow that to happen. You do that to yourself by settling and buying it anyway. And then on your way home, you're kind of like, well, crap, what the heck did I just do? I shouldn't have bought it because of this, and this. The only reason I bought it was because I kind of wanted it, right? Don't let that happen to you. I've been there. I don't have buyer's remorse very often, but you know, I have second guessed myself. Maybe that's the right way to say it. There's been times I've bought cars, project cars or whatever it is, and I kind of step back and look at it and think, maybe I'm getting in over my head. Maybe I shouldn't have bought this car. Or maybe I could have spent an extra $1,000 and gotten a way better one, or whatever, right? Buyer's remorse, that's second thoughts. Those can eat you alive. So be careful with that, but also know when it's appropriate to walk away. So if this video helped you, please hit that like button. Please do me a favor, share this stuff. I really enjoy making these videos. I'd love to see my page get a little bit more traction. I'd love to see the view counts climb. I'd love to see more participation, so please comment down below. And as always, may every investment you make be a good one. Till next time.